Good evening, Redbirds. Thank you for joining us. We will get started here in just a minute. My name is Stephanie Duquesne, and I'm with Alumni Engagement here at Illinois State University, and you are joining us tonight for a historical tour of the College of Education. We will get started. We're letting folks in right now, and we'll get started just here in a minute, so hang tight and get excited for a great presentation. While we're letting our Redbirds in, if you want to put in the chat what year you graduated from ISU. That's always fun for the panelists to see and see where everybody's coming from. I think I have at least one alum from Alaska. So if anybody coming to us from further away than that, just let us know in the chat. It's always fun. Kevin's from 1995. I'm a 2004 and a 2015 alum. So maybe I have some friends that are on here too from that era. 91, 95. Hey, Jess Ray. It's always fun when you join us. You could probably give this presentation, Jess, but maybe that's next time. There's my Alaska friend from 1966. That's awesome. I saw a few alums that registered from the class of 1970 and 71. So I do want to give a little promotion to those classes. They are celebrating their 50th anniversary. 70 is 51, but we couldn't celebrate it last year. So we're celebrating both of those reunions at our Half Century Club reunion weekend. That's over our homecoming in October. So if you're from those classes and you want more information about that reunion, I will put my email in the chat and you can reach out to me. Well, thank you, everybody. I think we've got a healthy chunk of folks that have joined us. Again, I'm Stephanie Duquesne, and I am with Alumni Engagement here in Illinois State University. I have had the pleasure of being able to host the Summer Virtual Historic Tour Series. So we have done several these past couple months, and tonight we're going to be taking a look at where our College of Education has lived on our ISU campus. So many of you are going to be able to reminisce with us about the history of our College of Education. Joining us tonight, we're going to start with, I want to introduce to you Dr. Stacy Jones-Bach from the College of Education. Stacy is an Associate Dean who graduated from the University of Kansas with her PhD in education. She started as an assistant professor in special education in 2000 here at Illinois State University and served as department chair. But for the past 2 years, she has served as interim associate dean. Her new position focuses on academic programs and fiscal planning. So Stacy, she's here with us tonight, and she is going to give us a little bit of an update of the College of Education. And we're excited to hear from you, Stacy. So if you're ready, you can go ahead.
Hi there. It says it's unable to start my video this evening.
We do hear you, though. If it's okay. Of course, we'd love to see your face, but we can hear you. So we can work through that technical difficulty if it's okay.
Absolutely, no worries. So on behalf of the College of Education, I want to welcome you tonight to the Education History Tour. I'm excited to be here with you as we learn about the long history of preparing educators at Illinois State. Before we look back at our educator preparation history, I want to acknowledge all of our current educators joining us tonight. I want to thank you for your hard work teaching and supporting your students over the past year and a half. At an incredibly crucial time, you not only problem solved how to educate K through 12 students, but many of you also continued to welcome and help educate our teacher education students in your virtual, hybrid, and your face-to-face classroom settings. You taught a lot to your students and our students about resiliency. We want to let you guys know that the College of Education is always here to support you, so please reach out if we can help. In addition to our online graduate programs, we also offer multiple free professional development sessions each year, both online and in person. And those are actually advertised on our social media platforms. Lastly, we want to do something fun tonight. So we'll be drawing 5 names out of the attendees to receive some College of Education swags in the mail, including our newest college t-shirt. We'll email those that are selected at the end of the week and throw the goods in the mail as well. I want to thank you to Alumni Engagement for inviting me to be here tonight, and I look forward to learning more about our history.
Thank you, Stacy. And Stacy is going to stay with us throughout this presentation. And then towards the end of the presentation, we will be asking our panelists, including Stacy, questions. So if you've got questions that you think Stacy could help answer, especially about our current environment in college education, throw those in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat throughout this hour and taking note of questions, and we will address all the questions at the end. So don't hesitate to throw comments and questions in the chat. I'll be taking a look at those and making sure that those get answered. So now let's move right on to our presentation tonight. I'm going to introduce our two presenters. We have Barb Dallinger and April Anderson-Zorn. Barb Dallinger is a Central Illinois native who received both her bachelor's in music and master's in science in the College of Education, College Student Personnel Administration from Illinois State University. Barb is employed by Illinois State for the past 30 years, and she has worked in both the College of Fine Arts and various positions in the Division of Student Affairs, including University Housing Services, Campus Dining Services, the Bone Student Center, and Braden Auditorium. She is currently the Associate Director for Events and Catering with Events Management, Dining, and Hospitality. Her achievements are so many, but these are just a few. Her achievements include being named Advisor of the Year, receiving the Distinguished Service Award for Illinois State University, the Women in Communication Innovation Award, and the Neil R. Gansky Quality of Student Life Award. Barb's one constant has been the passion and dedication she brings to each job and the enjoyment she has received working with our students. So please help me welcome Barb Dallinger.
Whoop, where did I go? Hello.
Barb,
Oh,
she'll
I
fix
know
her.
what happened.
Oh, technology.
Yes. Oh, that didn't help, did it? Okay, I'll work.
There we go. Hi, Barb. Looking great tonight.
Okay, yay.
Let's also welcome April Anderson-Zorn, who is a university archivist for Illinois State University. April earned her master's degrees in Library and Information Science from Florida State University and in history from the University of Central Florida. She is a certified archivist through the Academy of Certified Archivists and holds a digital archive specialist certificate through the Society of American Archivists. Anderson-Zorn has also worked as an archives consultant, partnering with a number of academic institutions and companies to help set up their archives programs. So let's please welcome Ms. April Anderson-Zorn.
Hi, I'm so sorry I make you go through that every time.
No, I love it, but I think I'm getting really good at saying the word archivist.
Archivist.
Okay,
Archivist.
good. I'm gonna hide myself and just hand it over to you all and enjoy your presentation.
Thank
Great.
you.
I'm gonna, Barb, if you wanna give me a second, I'm gonna pull up the screen for everyone while I get this set up. Let's see, get this. Technology, it's always wonderful, isn't it? Okay, so here we go. All right, everybody, you can see that, correct? College of Education.
Yay.
All right. Okay, let me just put this over here. So, hi, hello, everyone. Welcome. If you didn't know where you were joining into tonight, we are doing a building tour, a campus quad tour, and that's a little bit of a misnomer because we're not going to be on campus the entire time. But we're doing a College of Education history through buildings tour. I have a real love of architecture and architectural history, and I think that you can really tell, especially an institution as old as ours, you can really tell a college, a department, a school, a person's history through their movement through campus buildings and these buildings on campus. So that's what we're going to do tonight, talk a little bit about the buildings that the College of Education, which hasn't always been a college, is actually a kind of a recently, kind of a newish thing by about 50 years, how the college has transformed and has moved around on campus in its time on campus. So I'm going to start us off with, again, we're not starting on campus. We are going to start in downtown Bloomington, which is what this picture is right here, that little yellow circle that you can see toward the south end. That is where a building called Majors Hall used to be. And I have some pictures of Majors Hall that's about to pop up here in a second. For those of you that have maybe heard of Majors Hall, but don't know what it looked like. This comes from the Library of Congress around the 1830s when this picture was taken, along with a blueprint I've got pulled up here in a minute. That'll show you what Majors Hall looked like approximately. It actually used to have another story to it. It was a 3-story building when it was first constructed in 1851, a brick and wood frame structure on the southwest corner of East and Front Streets in downtown Bloomington. For those of you who know or in the know with Lincoln history, this was the site of Lincoln's lost speech, which happened on the 3rd floor of this building, which because of a fire in 1872 took out the 3rd floor of the building. But on that 3rd floor of the building is where Lincoln had his lost speech. The speech was reportedly so riveting that no one took notes, but it's important because it brought a rise to the Republican Party out of the Whigs, which he was a part of, a section of Democrats who wanted to stop slavery, et cetera. This is what brought together, or what is thought to be the thing that brought together the Republican Party. I actually just took these the other day. You can go down right now to the corner go down to downtown Bloomington on the corner and and see this. It's like it's a memorial with what used to be a brick wall with these plaques on them, and then were kind of chopped up when the garage was built, the parking garage was built, and turned into this kind of corner side memorial where you can see these various locations. But what I want to point out to you is in that top right corner, it says ISNU. That's because ISNU held its first classes in Majors Hall because Old Main, or what we know as Old Main, was not finished yet. It had not been completed and was not completed until the graduation ceremonies of the first graduating class in 1860. But before that first graduating class, we held classes there in Majors Hall. Right, and so just a real quick, if you are curious about those 2 photos of Majors Hall, those I can send those links to you if you'd like to see them further. And actually, there are some other photos of areas in downtown Bloomington as part of the Historic American Building Survey that was roughly around 1933, which was when a lot of those pictures and a lot of those surveys were done for our area and included at the Library of Congress. And if you have do you have anything you want to throw in there, Barb?
I just didn't realize that all those are still out there right now. That's awesome.
Yeah, look, I almost stuck a picture in there of my kid. We were down there for the farmer's market, and we just happened to walk by, and I said, oh, I need to snap some pictures for this event. And we took a couple of photos while we were there, and you almost got a picture of my kid in there because we were just having such a good Saturday. So you can go down there right now and take a look if you're in town and see these plaques and read the plaques and read about the history of Bloomington.
That is awesome. How fun.
So I'll go to the next, and Barb has the next slide. We move from, like I said, Old Main, and we move to Old Main.
Yay. So this little circle area is where Old Main was located. And we know that now really as the flower bed outside of Schrader. There is the Sin Tap out there. If you're ever just kind of walking around and want to check that out, it's got a picture on it. It's quite interesting. If we keep going here, there we go. There's a picture of it, how it stood on the prairie. And you'll see this is Old Main with the 3 stories, and the town started to grow. You can't see my little pointer, can you? Oh, well, with the town starting to grow up around it, which was made up mostly of the faculty, and this little bitty little grove of trees right here, that was what they called the junction, which we now know is the Normal Mass Transportation Center. Here we have the first graduating class. How exciting is that? They look so happy, don't they? Here in the middle, that would be Principal Hovey. So he was surrounded by his first graduating class. Interesting fact, obviously 4 girls and 6 men, which was kind of unusual for the time that we had that many women in our first graduating class. And then here's another picture of Old Main as you're walking up to it. The top sections Old Main was kind of plagued by fire and flood. And it became kind of a sore spot. It was interesting to hear about how that kind of also happened in Majors Hall. So we did eventually have to take off the cupola, and the bell that is up there is one of them that we have down on the quad right now. Picture of a classroom with them teaching, doing all these things to get ready. So let's see here. We've got what's the next one? Graduating class, the bridge, demolition with the supportive frame coming up. Ooh, that's one of my favorite pictures.
Yeah, this is a great, it's color too, which we're really lucky to have.
When they were actually tearing it down, I was talking to the class of 1957 a couple years ago, and I told them that I was very jealous of them for two reasons. One, they got to walk the halls of Old Main, and two, they met President Bone. Two things that I could never do, and that I will always be incredibly jealous of them with. Here we have the path walking up. You can see we've kind of got the little flower beds going here.
Mm-hmm.
What year did Old Main come down? I believe it was 57, wasn't it?
58. Came down in 1958.
Because I cut myself some slack because I was one. I didn't make it over in time, but hey, I only had a year. You know.
So real quick, that last picture that you saw, the steel girder, I'll throw in a bonus. The steel girder was added in 1932 to hold up the bell of Old Main. The bell that now sits on the quad, actually, that was the second bell. The first bell cracked in the 1880s and they had to get a replacement bell. So the replacement bell is actually the bell that's on the quad. That girder was added in 1932 because it was only being held up by two 2x4s. And so the bell was very quickly coming in, as well as some of the structure of the top of the building. Even though there was a movement in 1957 to save the building, it was just too cost prohibitive to save what was left of the building, as you see in this photo, and it had to be raised. However, it was raised in June of 1958. The demolition of Old Main had to be held for about a month while workers went scrambling for a mother cat and its kittens that had gotten not lost. I mean, they clearly knew where they were. They were in the building, but they wouldn't leave the building. So they had to remove the cats and remove the kittens before they could completely demo the building.
The interesting thing too, actually taking the top off of it years earlier made the Chicago Tribune. We have the article where it's
right.
Like the Chicago newspaper that down in Normal, they're taking this lid off here.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, there were people in the windows. I'm like, oh my, safety first.
And we're spending a lot of time in Old Main, but just to kind of wrap up that particular slide, it's important to bring it into this conversation because everything that happened on campus until we got Cook Hall in the 1880s, everything that happened on campus happened in that building when we moved out of Majors Hall. Every education class, every pedagogical class, lab schools happened in that building, agricultural classes, the gym, you name it, it happened in that building. So that building for the very longest stretch of time was the heart, the center of campus when Old Main was standing. So that's why when the building was slated to come down in the 50s, people were really fervent in trying to save that building. And why even now people are like, I have a piece of Old Main, I have a brick, I have this, I have that. And it still holds such nostalgia with a lot of the alums that we have.
Yeah, very true.
So let me click on, we'll go to the next slide if this decides it wants to move along. We have a lot of photos in this presentation, so sometimes the computer doesn't want to move. Now, the next building that a lot of people may not know about is a building called North Hall, which, if you can guess, it was north of Old Main, which is what that little circle is. So just south of the circle is where Old Main was located, and Old Main used to connect to Edwards and to Moulton, what we now know as Edwards and Moulton, and then North Hall was just north of Old Main. It was called that because it was north of Old Main. How original. It cost about $23,000 at the time to build, which is the equivalent of around $690,000 today, so just over $500,000 to construct this building. The idea was that they needed the building because they were at such capacity in Old Main. They needed the room for lab schools. So it really was at one point served as part of the university library, but it really served as the overflow for both pedagogical classrooms for those normal school students and for students who were in the lab schools and needed a place to learn, and our students to go and teach them. Like I said, it was later the third home of the university library. It went Old Main, Cook Hall, North Hall, what we now know is Williams Hall, which is the original Milner Library, and then the Milner Library we're in right now. And I threw this picture in because if you notice, I mean, old North Hall didn't have a dome, it didn't have that cupola, but that's where the cupola from Old Main, when it was being torn down in 1958, that's where it rested, just to the north of the building, or what was eventually the building. And there's all these students standing outside watching, again, in complete awe, because this had such, it just had such a presence on campus, and to see it come down was quite the sight to see at the time. But that's where the dome landed, and eventually it was moved to South Campus, you know, and maybe served as a spot to meet. Some couples maybe found their way down to that dome, and maybe found their way under that dome. And I'm sure there's lots of little redbirds that may have occurred because of that dome, as I've been told by some alums over the years. But of course, the dome no longer exists, and it was taken down. But there's part of the dome. You can see that in front of North Hall.
Gotcha. So would that, like right now, would that be, I don't know, on College?
Yeah, it would kind of sit right on the edge of College, maybe a little over onto College. But yeah, no, it was direct. I mean, where this picture is being taken is probably from just behind Old Main. It was really close to Old Main. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I also love this picture because if you look in the windows, you can see people watching from the windows, watching that cupola come down.
Once again, safety first.
Safety first, everybody. So next building on the list is Edwards Hall, and take it away, Barb.
Edwards Hall is currently housing our College of Nursing, and some of it at least. And it was at one point, it was attached by a walkway to Old Main, along with Moulton. So you could go back and forth without going outdoors, which I know our students now would think that was quite fabulous. So here's, but you can kind of see that little walkway too. So you could go back and forth. It was the Manual Arts building, and it had, yeah, really, Stacy, would that not be nice? And it housed Cape and Cinema, which really, well, the Cape and Auditorium, which then for years, a lot of us spent time there with Cape and Cinema watching the movies, but it was actually the original gathering place for the students. And they would have their morning, what they called their morning exercises there. The president would talk to them every morning, and that was their big place. But to think that the entire school fit in there. So what are we doing here, April? Wow.
Right, this is one of the classrooms in Edwards Hall. Well, at the time it was known as Manual Arts. The building itself was opened in 1909, but Cape and Auditorium opened later in 1928. The idea behind having the Manual Arts building was to teach students how to teach manual arts. So how to teach woodworking, how to teach bookbinding, how to teach metalworking. So that classroom was indicative of some of the classrooms that were in that building at the time to show how you taught these manual crafts.
And here we have the annex that was on there for a while that also sent you to Cape and Auditorium. You can see on the little sign there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love that sign. It's very well in the photo itself, but you see the sign and you know what era it is. You don't have to. It's a very clear indication of what it is. It was later named, the building itself, Manual Arts, was later named for our second president, Richard Edwards. Richard Edwards, actually, he's one of the only presidents in archives where we have two separate collections for him. The first are his presidential papers, which is little, and then the larger collection are his family papers, where we have diaries from his daughters, diaries from Richard Edwards himself, and also sermons that he wrote and delivered to churches around town, particularly the First Methodist Church, the church next door to Milner, although that's not its original location. That church organization, he was one of the founders of that church, and some of those sermons can be found in his collection at Archives.
Yeah, one of his famous quotes, because the students had to be in class, they had to stay in Old Main all day. You couldn't like scurry around like they do now. And one of his famous quotes was, "Woe unto be to the student who was caught playing euchre in the bell tower." you were to be in the library or studying or in class, not in the bell tower playing euchre.
What is with the bell? I tell you what.
It's inspirational.
That bell. So I'm going to go over to Jess Ray's neck of the woods next. We're going to Moulton Hall, which at the time was known as Old Metcalf. In 1920, this is around the time this building was constructed. So where you saw a bridge connecting to the Manual Arts building for Old Main, the bridge also connected over to what we now know as Moulton. So it was, so again, you know, you can make the argument that North Hall or even Old Main or even Majors Hall were the buildings constructed for, maybe not Majors Hall, but these were the buildings that were constructed for the lab school. Well, we ran out of space again. And so by 1920, we needed a dedicated lab school, and this was it. So this was named originally for Thomas Metcalf, who was the first school supervisor with the university, so named Metcalf Lab Schools. It was for all of our lab schools. So we actually had about 3 different lab schools at the time. We had the grammar school, the elementary, and the high school, but those were all split and, well, they were combined and then split again. So around 1947, we ended up with 2 lab schools. We have the elementary school, which we know now as Thomas Metcalf School, and then we have the high school, which is University High School. And those two have their own sort of separate histories as we go along. University High School did shut down for a little while at the turn of the century. But ultimately, around 1947, or when these schools finally sort of came into their own and became their own entities away from, I mean, there still are lab schools, but they separated themselves in 47. The elementary school moved over to the building that it's in, the current Metcalf building, in 1957. The high school moved, and we're going to cover those buildings, so don't worry. You're like, you're talking about them, but I know those buildings. No, we're coming back. Don't worry. Those buildings, Metcalf moved over in 57, and then the high school moved over in 1966. So what is the building now? Jess knows this building. This is the registrar's office. The registrar lives here. Veteran Services, which is a really great little space that we helped Jess put some photos in. It's a really great space for veterans. Department of Physics. I believe the Department of Physics is still there. They were there at one time. I think they're still there. But the building was renamed for a gentleman named Samuel Moulton, who was a member of the first Board of Education. The whole reason how we became who we are, we had to have a Board of Education in order to start the university. And Sam Moulton was one of those members of the board. You got anything you want to add to that there, Barb?
Don't think so.
This is a really great picture. I want to say this comes from the 1980s. Don't hold me to that, but I believe this is around circa 1980, and I really like it because you can see the planetarium kind of sitting there. And then there's Cook off in the back, and you can just see DeGarmo in the back. So kind of see the progression, because we're going to touch on, well, not the planetarium, obviously. We're going to touch on some of these other buildings as we go along. Well, then, oh, go ahead.
Doesn't Moulton have like the rock collection that kids can go in and see the rocks?
I think you're thinking of Felmley.
Oh, is that Felmley?
Yeah, I think it's the Funk Rock collection. Yeah, I think that's Felmley. Yeah, every so often I got asked that once. Do you know where the rocks are? When I was in Felmley.
It's like, no, I don't.
So you're up next, Barb. It's Fairchild Hall.
All righty, Fairchild Hall. You can see where it is right over there, kind of behind DeGarmo. Fairchild is named after our 8th president, who was Raymond Fairchild. My phone is just going crazy here.
Popular, you're popular.
Driving me nutty. Okay. So he was our 2nd longest serving president. Here we're being constructed. He obtained the federal funds to build or renovate 10 of our buildings on campus. His period of time was one of great expansion for us. He brought continuous grad work to the university. He helped make us the first school in the nation to offer special education training in all areas of education. And that's why he got the name built after him. There's a story, legend, whatever you want to call it, that when they introduced President Fairchild to the campus, he was a tall man. He was very tall. And one of the building service workers said, you know, he isn't going to stay. He's much too tall. He's much too big of a man to stay at this little school. And when he retired years later and left, That same building service worker was quoted as saying he was a large man, but what he did was build us up to his size. And he took very seriously the expansion of the facility, which is awesome to know. He put a lot into it. And that one of his first terms of business was exchanging the farm cows or something, that he had to sell a cow at his first meeting with the faculty, had to settle a dispute, but he did go on to do some amazing things. Back to
I hadn't heard that story. Oh, you muted yourself, Barb. Well, I'll jump in until Barb comes back. So I also want to point out too, these photos that you're seeing of the buildings that we're going through wouldn't be possible without the encouragement of Dr. Fairchild, or excuse me, well, Dr. Fairchild, with President Fairchild encouraging Nelson Smith, the university photographer, to be the university photographer in the 1930s. So he met Nelson, who was a budding photographer at the time, and said, hey, your photos are good. Why don't you follow me around? Why don't you take some photos for the university? And he did just that. Nelson left to go serve in the war and get an education, came back to the university in the 40s, and the rest was history. He stuck on with us for several decades until the 1990s. And these photos that you see in this presentation, except for my silly ones from Majors Hall, would not be possible without Nelson's work over the many decades. He was our university photographer. You're back, Barb. Hi.
yay. All righty.
All right. All right. Well, I'm going to hop over to Rachel Cooper Hall. So I think that's me. So I know that for some of you, Rachel Cooper Hall, you're like, wait a minute, that's the same building as Fairchild. Yes. At the time that the building was constructed, Rachel Cooper, that we know now as Rachel Cooper Hall, that was all part of Fairchild. So a lot of the photos I'm going to show you are what was considered Fairchild at the time. But I wanted to make the distinction that Rachel Cooper Hall ended up being split off and actually now is a home of women and gender studies, among other things. But for some time was also student health services. But when Fairchild was constructed, Rachel Cooper, what we know as Rachel Cooper, was part of Fairchild. And here is part of Rachel Cooper. I think some beautiful ironwork, frankly. And like I said, I'm an architecture buff, so that's why I put it in here. With a class that is a lab school, special education lab school class with their teachers. This is also a photo. I love this photo. Again, you know the date, you know the era when you see this, and it says Illinois State Normal University on the school bus. I just think that's
a bus.
It's a bus. Yeah, isn't that a fabulous picture? So, oh, go ahead. What was that, Barb?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun picture. Some of the pictures that you're seeing, and here's another one, and Barb commented on this, and this came to me, this was found as we are processing some photos from Nelson Smith's personal collection. There's a lot of ISU gems in there that we're discovering, like this one, Fairchild Hall Superway. So you could go and stop at the Superway and get yourself a pack of mints while you're going through Fairchild Hall. But it was also known for some teaching innovations in the 1950s, which is something that Fairchild really wanted to push in his time as president. Some innovations, recording lessons on, here's a reel-to-reel player, so recording some of these lessons and sending them out across the country, which we have some of those courses that have been recorded, part of the university archives. Later, it would become video technology, so recording these courses and showing how to teach these courses, something that you could then purchase and use at your institution at the time. But to also kind of back up and talk a bit about Rachel Cooper Hall in 51, since we did have some students who were learning how to be school nurses, that section was broken off and named for Dr. Susan Rachel Merrill Cooper, the university's first full-time director of health services. And she served from around 1928 to 1946. The health services at the time were in Cook Hall, on the southeast corner of Cook Hall, and then they moved to Fairchild when they moved over to Fairchild later on when they had the ability to do so. The facility served as student health services, and look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They definitely had, if you were around in the 70s, 80s, 90s, the student health services in that building certainly had controversy at the time, and you can read those in the digital archives for the Vedette digital archives, which you have available at the library and through our site. And it definitely had its controversy. It not long ago, oh gosh, help me out. I think it was right before I started in 2011. In the 2000s decade is when Rachel Cooper Hall, those services moved over to our current student health services building.
Mhm. I do have a small Rachel Cooper, you know, that the lovely ironwork on the outside. I got really sick during a concert, passed out, head hit the keyboard, and they took me to Rachel Cooper, and they wouldn't let me out, like they wouldn't let my parents see me. So the girls on my floor climbed the grating to get to my room to get in. So they all climbed the grating. Crazy.
Those are good friends, Barb.
Exactly.
I hope you're still in contact. Those are good friends.
One was my cousin and he called my dad. Yes.
Well, this is you. Take it away on Metcalf.
Okay, Metcalf, of course, is our grade school that we know and adore. It opened in 1957, like she says. It was a Fairchild project, but sadly he passed away before it was completed, which is always a sad thing. They had the dedication the same day as when we dedicated Schrader Hall. Who are we building here? Nice. Inside it is Hayden Auditorium, which is used by the Metcalf grade school kids. I've gone to a couple of recitals and things there, which are always lovely. That was dedicated in 1960 and named after a longtime first grade teacher. Oh, that's President Bone. That must be during the dedication.
That was a busy day for him. He was hopping all around that campus doing dedications.
They were close. Nice.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. And then when the school moved, the old Metcalf became University High School prior to them building the fancy schmancy one. Oh, look at the little smiley faces. That is so cute. That is one thing a lot of people didn't realize. There was a question, it was on Facebook, about when did the lab school open? It's like, well, the lab school opened the first day because you can't teach teachers how to teach without giving them someone to teach. So some form of a lab school has been around here since day one. That's the pool. Oh my gosh. I took one of the swimming classes with our wellness program there, and that was the best pool. It was, because it's short, because it was little people. So I liked that. It made it perfect. And it was warm because of the programming that they did. So it was the warmest pool. That was a great thing. This must be dedication of Hayden?
That's right. Dedication of Hayden Auditorium. Yeah.
Awesome.
There's the facilities. There's, I think, one more picture after the pool and some of the classrooms, and the way that the rooms and the facilities were designed with intention and purpose to make sure that the students who were learning these various ways, so the pool being short and being heated, like you said, especially for students who had special needs, that you were able to give them that care and attention that they needed when you were running those courses. So a lot of these facilities that you see, oh, I'm sorry, this is the last photo. I was thinking ahead, I'm a slide ahead on the classrooms, but a lot of these classrooms, both in Metcalf and in what we're about to see next, University High School, were constructed with intention, with intention for, all right, we're going to be teaching these students these various trades and tasks and skills. And so we need these facilities to match what we're learning and how we're teaching.
Well, and that pool had a lift. Long
Yeah.
before it was popular for like the Holiday Inn or somebody to have it.
Yeah. All right, let me go to University High School next. So University High School, when U-High, this is, and we're talking about U-High right over off of Main Street, where the old University Farm used to be, and sort of north of West Campus. So this is the 1965 building where we're moved out of what is now Moulton. So when Metcalf moved over to their building, U-High had stayed there, and then U-High got its building in 1965. Again, Dr. Bone, if it wasn't Fairchild, it was Bone, who really helped shape the face of what we see our campus as today. And here's Dr. Bone in his dedication for the groundbreaking, because there's the tower, the water tower. And later on, I didn't throw the photo in, but I have a photo of the students who would eventually be attending U-High. They're digging up their groundbreaking. I believe this is a photo with John Roan, who just recently passed away, but was responsible for several construction projects and including University High School. And I believe John Roan's in this photo. Somebody who knows John can let me know in the comments. I can't see the comments right now, but let me know. I'd be curious to know, but I believe John Roan's in there. So this again was constructed with intention. And actually right here, as I'm going to divert again for a second, if you look where the front doors are, and you look just to the right, you kind of think of what the wall is just to the right, there is a time capsule that's in there that was installed at the time that the building was constructed in 1965. It was placed actually in 1964. And at the 50th anniversary a few years ago, John Roan was there, and we were all there to pull out the time capsule, remove its contents. He got to reminisce a little bit about the construction of the building. And then we reinstalled the time capsule with current day materials, and the students partook in that and reinstalled that time capsule. So if you're curious about the time capsule, I think the Cornerstone says that now. It says that it's a new era of time capsule, but there is a new time capsule that was installed in 2016. There was, I believe we passed a photo very briefly. There was we haven't gotten there yet, I don't think. There was a photo for Stroud Auditorium, which even though the building opened in 65, constructed 64, opened 65, the auditorium didn't open until 1966 and was named for a longtime teacher that had been part of the U-High staff for many years. Anything you want to throw in there, Barb?
Just that I know they've recently redone Stroud again to bring it up to even higher technical. They can do a lot more over there now than they used to.
I may have, let me go to the next, I think, hold on one second. I feel like I may have skipped. I had a photo in here of Miss Stroud with the auditorium, but I think my presentation has locked up on me. Give me 1 second here.
Ending with very good posture.
Do you see a picture of, there we go. Hold on 1 second. There she is. There she is. There she is. Yeah, it was a mistake on my part trying to get this thing to work. There we go. So this is there's Mrs. Stroud, or Miss Stroud, I should say, in the recently had just been dedicated Stroud Auditorium at University High School.
Nice.
So DeGarmo Hall is up next. And this is, for many of you, you know DeGarmo Hall. Take it away, Barb.
Do we know DeGarmo Hall? My goodness. Okay, so it was named for Charles DeGarmo, who was an alum and an educator at the time. It's located kind of next to Cook Hall, in between Cook and Fell. We going on here? Yeah, there he is. Charles DeGarmo. I believe that picture is outside the elevator even. It was part of Dr. Bones' plan, but it was another one of those that didn't get completed prior to his retirement. The Illinois lawmakers started stopping forward movement on construction. So it started in 71 and didn't finish until 73. And it has such an interesting floor plan to it. And the wonderful copper windows. When I give instructions to people trying to find Fell Hall, I'm always like, Castle Copper Fell. You just go Castle Copper Fell and you're going to get there and find. Interesting thing, the plan at the beginning, there it is, all pretty and shiny. There was a plan to build like 3, 4, even maybe 5 of these going down that street. There were going to be educational facilities or even residence halls for the students. And after we built the first one, we were just kind of like, no, I don't think so. So they stopped that. It's lovely. It has wonderful open space within it. I just shudder sometimes when I walk past. Those of you who were in education in the late 70s, professional sequence was going to be the death of me. And that is all I associated with DeGarmo Hall. I still have my professional sequence printout saying that I completed it because I will never give up that piece of paper. Here are the beautiful stairways that go down, honest to gosh. A lot of learning has taken place there. The open floor plan makes it really nice to be able to go down and walk around, and you can cut through and get over to University Street and Metcalf. Metcalf's very close for the students who are doing their practicums and things. It is positively beautiful from Stacy. It is. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just once you get inside, I'm like I'm on a wing and a prayer. It's like I know it's down here. I'm pretty sure it's down here, but it is. Had some wonderful times there. I was so impressed. When I graduated, I moved away and I came back exactly 10 years later. And there was Dr. Lorber walking through DeGarmo Hall in his very same white starched shirt with his black tie and his black suit, and looking not a day different than when I shakily left his office with professional sequence. Dr. Lorber, yes, I love Dr. Lorber. So that was kind of a cool thing to see. It's like, oh yeah, they're still there. But it is a lot of good times, a lot of commiserating. And my grad classes, some of my grad classes were there. So I can now associate it with Dr. Phyllis instead of, professional sequence. That's a good thing.
So I'll jump in and add a couple of things real quick. So between the time that we constructed and opened University High School to the time that we constructed and opened DeGarmo, the College of Education was born. So we started colleges. We did not have colleges prior to, well, technically 1967. We, when we switched to a liberal arts forward-thinking education, because we had been a teacher's college for so long, around the mid-60s, it was in 67 that we finally implemented the college system, the College of Education being one of 3 of the early colleges that were part of the university. It's not for sure. Dr. Bone, in that process, I think really wanted to have a dedicated education building at that point. It's just, hey, welcome to Illinois, trying to find a building. And it just didn't happen until after his retirement. And even then, when they broke ground in 71, it still took a couple of years to get DeGarmo finished. The other thing I want to point out is the name. And I think it's really important for especially College of Education alumni to know who Charles DeGarmo was, because Charles DeGarmo founded a pedagogy known as Harbartianism. Harbartianism, in a very quick, short nutshell, is you take the idea of teaching morality and you infuse it into various disciplines. So if you teach history, you teach students about Charles Hovey and his morality and how he led students into the war and made sure they graduated before they did. You do this in languages, you do this in mathematics, you do this across all disciplines. But in this, you teach students how to be moral citizens and to contribute back as moral citizens. Before Dewey was a thing, Harbartianism was the form of pedagogy, was the pedagogy taught in the United States up until around the 1920s when Dewey really took hold. So we founded that here in the 1880s, 1890s, and for a short period of time, a group known as the American Harbartian Five, which was Charles DeGarmo, Cecil Van Loo, and the 3 McMurrays, Lyda McMurray, Frank McMurray, and Charles McMurray. They had all had some part of being part of ISU faculty, and we had them here, and we were the only institution to do that at the time. So we hold a very special place in the history of the development of US education. And that is why we named DeGarmo Hall for DeGarmo.
Nice.
Yeah. So I know you're like, I've never heard of this, April. This is the soapbox I stand on whenever I'm like, you should know about DeGarmo. And I know we're running short on time, so I'll very quickly, I wanted to make sure that we touch on this for those of you that did hop over to this building, downtown or uptown Normal. What used to be the honors building, for those of you that have been around a while, and that building used to be the Department of Educational Administration. I just stumbled upon this photo. I'm not going to lie. I only recently knew about this. I did not know that it was in that building, but it was in that building. Now it's the Center for Civic Engagement, but here is a fantastic photo of people that I don't know. So if you know these people, please tell me who they are, and I will add that to the photograph. But this is a photo of when the Department of Educational Administration used to be
That was an
that
excellent
location.
lead-in. That was an excellent lead-in, like the civic engagement, that was well done. And I will
Thanks.
tell you, when I lived in Waterston, that was a dentist.
Oh, was it really? See, it's been so many different things that I've only ever really known it as the honors program until it became Center for Civic Engagement. So, but I've only been here, what, 10 years now? I know it doesn't seem like that to me. So that is it. That is our presentation. Thank you. I'll leave this up for a minute. If you have questions after the presentation, those are our email addresses, but you can easily find us through the directory. You can email us questions or anything. Hey, if you got stuff you want to add to the archive, I'm always happy to take it. Please let me know.
We will take your stuff.
Yeah, and there is Stacy's face, so now we can all see that. Oh, technology, isn't it fun? Well, thank you three so much. Your presentations are always just so interesting, and I always learn so much. And I think that the folks here, they're echoing my sentiments in the chat now. I don't believe I saw any questions that went unanswered, but we do have just a couple more minutes. So if you all do have any questions, throw them in the chat. So Stacy, did you learn stuff listening to this presentation?
I took 2 pages of notes.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Wow.
Yes, that was great. I learned a ton in this presentation. Thank you so much.
And I love that we can see your view outside your office window, high up in the Garmo.
Such a great view.
That's a fun view.
Oh.
That's a fun view for our folks that are here. So I don't see any questions. So for those of us who are on, I will be turning this presentation into a link and be emailing that out tomorrow. Also to anybody who registered. A lot of folks registered but can't attend, but still would like to see the presentation. Then Stacy, you have that to share at your next staff meeting or something. So you'll be getting that email from me tomorrow, along with the next date of the next tour, which I believe, April, that brings us into September. And so it's actually going to be a Facebook Live, right?
Yeah, so going to be a homecoming exhibit tour, I believe.
Yes, we are going to be doing a live unveiling of April's History of Homecoming exhibit that will be up in Milner Library for from September through the end of the semester, right?
End of the semester, yeah. It's just there's been a lot of interest, so we decided to keep it up for the whole semester.
Yeah, we're celebrating our 100 years of homecoming, so it's perfect to have that historical display, and you will get a first view on Facebook, and we will make sure to get that information out to all of you. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Wednesday night. A huge thank you to our panelists and our attendees, and we will see you next time, Redbirds.
Thanks.
Bye, Redbirds.